this is what we're going to make today. It's a mock-up of each individual job that the user has applied to and information. So if you click it, it'll expand and look like this. And then this will be a stretch goal. So like if you click the row icon, then it'll expand all of them and it will look like this. And then here is a sort. So like if we know how sorts work, but I'll show you how to actually do that in code. Does that sound like something
exciting? Sure.
Okay, cool. Amy, you ready for this?
I guess.
Okay.
Just throw me in the water.
Yeah, it's the best way to learn how to swim. You said it.
No.
You guys will probably want this extension called Prettier. It formats your code nicely for you the moment you hit save. So all of you install Prettier. I went ahead and deleted all that stuff, but now we want to use our mock backend. So the way to do that is we have to make a network request to our fake database URL, which is localhost 3001/users. In order to do that, we have to use this method or this function called fetch, and then you type in the URL. But fetch has a very limited amount of abilities, so we're gonna use a third-party service or third-party library called Axios. And Axios is preferred because it's able to cancel network requests if you want to do that. That's not something we're going to do right now, but in the future we might, so we're just going to start off using Axios. And to get Axios, we use yarn. So it'll be yarn add Axios. In my case, I think I'm going to have to give it admin privileges, so I'll let it install first and see if it works. If it doesn't, I'll show you how to give admin privileges. Yeah, it didn't work for me. So I have to give it admin privilege by typing sudo in front, and then it's going to ask for my Mac password, and then it will install properly. But I think I typed the command wrong. Yarn add Axios. Do you guys see my terminal?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you ever have any issue installing a library, it's probably because you need to give it admin privileges. Oh, I don't know what the thing for Windows is. The sudo would only work for Mac. So that's something we'll have to look up. And then after it installs, we're going to have to import it to our app in order to use it. That'll look like this. Import Axios from the library called Axios in quotation marks. And then I'll be able to use this. This is a variable, so I'll be able to use this in my code. Axios.get, that's the syntax for this. But I can't just do this like on its own. It's not in a function or anything. That's why it's giving us red. So what I'm going to have to do is put it inside of this function called component did mount. And what this is it's a part of the React lifecycle. So React is this framework that we're working with that allows us to quickly render information to the screen. And it's not like the old websites where you had to refresh and all that stuff. Okay, so inside of component did mount, I'm going to do a console log to show you how the procedure of our app runs. So we're just going to put out a string of the name of the function, and then we're going to do the same in render. And then now if we go to our front end, localhost 3000 and look at the console, we're gonna see which function happens first. And this, oh, I did component did mount twice, my bad. So render should say render. So you see, do you see render, and then component did mount?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So what that does is on app load, this function will happen first, and then it's going to do a component did mount, and if anything were to change, then render would run again. So we can't call, or well, we can't make this network request inside render, because if we do, then something would have changed about our app, and then it'll call render again, and then it'll put it in an infinite loop, because then it'll get some information, update our app, realize the information changed, and then it'll update the information again and over, and then your browser will crash. So we have to do this this network request inside of component did mount. That's just like a very general way of, like a general place where people make network requests for information. And then I am going to store the information that we get into a variable so that we could use it. So let's say this is users equals 08. And then now if we go to localhost 3000, we'll see the users data come back. And if you click data, you'll see there are 4 objects: Wesley, Amy, KJ, and Rob. Do you all see that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is how we can now make use of the information that we got from our backend. In order to use that, we have to save it to a temporary state within our front end. And we're going to call this users. So you initialize the state with empty array, but if your information was not an array, let's say it was a string, let's say first users that's great, just say username. So that would be an empty string. But if you were to, so basically empty of everything. If you were to have an object, let's say user object, then it will be an empty object. Alternatively, you could also use null, which is it's saying it's not set, so like it doesn't have a value. That's what null means. You could do either. So for our case, we have an array. We could just leave it as an empty array. That's fine. So now I'm gonna update this empty array with our users information. But if we saw earlier, it wasn't, our array wasn't inside users, it was inside users.data, right? So then what I want to update our state with is users.data. And in order to update state, you have to use this function called setState. And the reason why we have this dot in front is that this is referring to the class, our class app. So it's this state within the class app that we're doing setState on. So this would be users, and then users.data, which is coming from here. And once we update our state, then we could use it inside our render. So it'll look like this: const users equal, this part looks very weird, so I will explain this right now. So what this does is that it's pulling the user's variable from our state. This is called destructuring. When you ever see this syntax where it's curly braces and then equal sign, that is called destructuring, and that is kind of the same as if you were to say const users equal this dot state dot users, but you're gonna see this syntax way more often than this. Because then with this, if I had multiple things in here, like earlier, right? I had first name, let's use null, and user object, right? Then I would have to do like multiple const. It'll be like const first name equals this dot state dot first name, and it would get very repetitive, right? So the proposed way of doing this is you would just do that, and it could just be in one line instead of 3. So this is a much more preferred way to get information out of a common object, in this case, our state. So if if we want to render our users now, we can. It's just what we've been doing all along. So it'll be, we'll make a function called show users, and then you use a map, and then you return the user email or whatever, and then you'll call that function inside of here. So that part we already know, but what I just showed you is a lot. So I'm gonna pause here, and if you have questions, I'll answer them.
So state is you have to call a state?
Yeah, and this has to be called state. So
Okay.
the 3 things that you can't change is state, actually 4 things: state, component did mount, set state, and render. These are a part of React's built-in code, so you can't rename those. So now I'm gonna delete this, and then I'm gonna let Wesley redo it.
Oh no.